Hello and welcome to PRSay. This is the podcast for the Houston chapter of the Public Relations Society of America. I'm your host, Veronica Sofer with Veronica V. Sofer Public Relations, and I'm thrilled to be here with you because in this podcast, we get to really dive in and know our members a little bit. So if you're joining us for the first time, just know that you can listen on your favorite podcast platform. Just look for PRSay, make sure you download it, and then hit subscribe because we don't want you to miss any episodes of PRSay. If you are watching on Facebook or on YouTube, drop us some comments and my guest and I will come back and connect with you. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and bring on our amazing guest today. We have Dennis Nuss, APR, joining us. Welcome, Dennis. How are you?
I'm doing great, Veronica. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. So tell us a little bit about yourself. Here on the podcast, it's important for members to get to know each other. So when we do connect in person, we've got something in common already.
Sure thing. Well, Dennis Nuss, APR, as you mentioned, and I am currently the Director of Media Relations and Crisis Communications for ConocoPhillips. And I am a 10-year resident of Houston now. I'm originally from New Orleans, and may be able to hear my accent. Sometimes people say they can hear it, other times not as much. But
Yes, I could
definitely
definitely hear it.
have become
I was
a
going to ask.
yes. So long time there, and started actually getting involved with PRSA there back about almost 20 years ago now, and got my APR in 2008 and was actually chapter president of the New Orleans chapter. And since coming to Houston, I've gotten involved in the Houston chapter as well, and have become the assembly delegate for the last couple of years for the chapter. So I'm a member of the board, and I'm actually this year currently co-chairing PR Day, which is later this year.
That's so exciting. So great leadership opportunities. What would you share with someone who's considering leadership? So obviously you've been the president of a chapter before. Now you're serving in different capacities and representing us at different levels. But what would you say some of the benefits are of being involved in the local chapter?
Plenty of benefits. The number one opportunity, of course, is networking. You get to meet so many different people from so many backgrounds, a lot of different, people that come from nonprofits or the corporate world or government or whatever it may be. And everyone's really working towards the same thing because they're all communicators, right? They're all professionals in this business. And so when you get those ideas flowing and get everyone talking to each other, it really turns into a beautiful thing. And, for the leadership opportunities, you really get to show your skill set, what you can do, and how it can benefit others. And for me, I'm 25 years into my career now, and mentoring is very important to me because it's so important as you see some of the new folks coming out of college, and new hires in the world and what they are interested in. How can we, the more experienced folks that are out there, how can we help them? And so that's the most important thing to me, and particularly in these leadership roles, it's an opportunity to do that.
Yeah, I would definitely agree. I too am in the 25-year-ish range of having been seasoned, as I like to call it. But yeah, I would say mentoring is really important. What are some of the challenges that new PR folks might or they haven't experienced yet? We've been in the job a while. We've been in different organizations, but now that you've got those 25 years past, what's some advice that you might give young folks starting out in the PR space?
I think it's more important than ever to get involved in organizations like PRSA, and particularly because of the events of, say, the last few years for sure, and really over the last 5 to 10 years. If you look at how things have changed, how news has changed, how social media has changed the world, and of course we all know what COVID has done and changed things dramatically. It's as important as ever to really link up with the organizations and the learning that are going to help you be able to get to that next level. And
Mhm.
it is a challenge. There's a lot of challenges out there right now. There's also a ton of opportunities because things are the pace of change, right? Is changing. It's changing quicker and quicker all the time. And I think we're going to continue to see that for the foreseeable future.
Hmm. Yes, I would definitely agree. And I think that's really good advice. So, switching gears just a little bit, let's talk about the oil and gas space. We've got members on the nonprofit side, in the government sector, in the education sector, and all different kinds. And I'm always interested in finding out from folks what their not maybe not their challenges, but what are some of the interesting aspects of being in your particular space.
Sure. Oil and gas is an interesting space. Of course, it's been around for a very long time, and hopefully, it's going to continue to be around for a very long time. I think there's certainly a lot of challenges for the industry and how that's going to look over the next 10, 15, 20 years. And just in the last couple of years, we've seen a big shift in terms of how people view the oil and gas industry. There was just a couple of years ago a very rapid progression towards the energy transition. And oil and gas, we're not going to need it as much. We're always going to need it, but we're not. We're getting into other forms of energy and other opportunities, and that's going to continue to happen. And it's important that that happens. At the same time, as we look at recent events, the oil and gas industry has become as important as ever, and particularly when it comes to energy security for the country and also for the world, because there's a lot of opportunities in oil and gas to be able to make the world a better place and to help people be able to give what they need to give to the people that live in those different countries across the world. And so it's as important as ever. A lot of opportunities in the PR space for sure.
Hmm.
I get to work with reporters quite a bit, and it's a good opportunity. It's a good opportunity to talk, to educate them, to get them more just more into the business and give them a better understanding, because um, there's a lot of misunderstanding, if you will,
Hmm.
that's out there and with the oil and gas industry. And so for communicators like myself, it's extremely important that we're telling the story and that we're telling the story well. At the same time, we also have to listen to what's going on in the world and bring that feedback back into our organizations and to our leadership. So it's a lot of different opportunities when it comes to PR and oil and gas.
Hmm. Yeah, and I'm curious too what has changed. Yes, oil and gas has been around, especially here in Houston, for many, 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 many years, and there's been lots of ups and downs. I've had some guests on before that experienced some challenges in the '80s, and then went into different spaces and are now back into it. But what are some of the um, I would say transitions or things that have changed, evolved in how you're pitching to media, especially for oil and gas? Because, I remember back in the day, our pitches were determined based on the 10 p.m. broadcast or the 5 o'clock news. And that is not how we pitch anymore. How has that changed for you in oil and gas?
Yeah, it's definitely changed. I think about when I go to that, the energy transition is there's such a conversation around energy transition and what that's
Mhm.
going to look like and what role is oil and gas going to play. So, I think whereas before for oil and gas, a lot of it was, kind of stay the course. We know that we're important, and everyone understands that, they've got to put gas in their cars and jet fuel and planes to get to where they're going. That might have been the case, 15, 20 years ago. But now it's different because, like I said, there's an elevated level of attention on the industry. There's an energy transition that is happening, is going to continue to happen. So you need to kind of look at the long game, if you will, right? And it's not so much, oh, here's a great story about something we did in the community, right? Because that's important. I mean, companies like ConocoPhillips and others, they do a lot of work in the community, and that's important. But that's not that's not the sole types of things you want to pitch anymore. You really have to think of what's the bigger picture. What are you doing to reduce them? What are you doing to think about how your business can impact that energy transition and what it's going to do in the long term. So it's really, looking over a span of time, and how do you work with journalists to be able to tell that story and to get that
Mhm.
message out there.
Mhm. No, I think that's a great example, and I think a lot of us have had to reshift how we think about pitching, just because of some of the things you talked about, but more importantly, because there are so many resources out there and so many other places where they can get their information. So, in terms of crafting the narrative, we've got to be more creative about how we do it. So, I love when you talked about what's the bigger picture, what's our real angle, what problem are we trying to solve. So, I think that's fantastic. Um, Dennis, share with us how people can connect with you. How is the best way for folks to get to know you a little bit better?
Sure. Well, again, I'm pretty involved in the local chapter. I usually got to try to make as many events as I can, and also go to some of the national conferences as well. They got the big one going to be coming up in just a few months. But LinkedIn, certainly, I'm very accessible on LinkedIn. I try to keep up with the pace on LinkedIn, which of course there's a lot of things happening there. But always love to hear from people. I have a Twitter account as well, NOLA PR guy. That's a leftover there, obviously, from my NOLA time. But yeah, would love to connect. And anytime that that folks want to be able to meet and to learn, opportunity to be able to share the many things I've learned over the years, whether it be corporate communications or crisis communications. I've had a lot of experience there, media relations, and so I'm happy to engage in a discussion or just help steer someone in the right direction if they're looking for a resource or a person or any that sort of stuff. I'm always happy to help.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Spoken like a true PRSA leader. Thank you so much, Dennis. I've enjoyed our chat and I look forward to seeing you in person.
Yeah, same here, Veronica. You take care and have a great rest of your day.
Absolutely. All right, guys, that was Dennis. I hope you definitely go and follow him. I will make sure his social media handles are included in the show notes because we want you to connect with all of the awesome members we have in our Houston chapter of PRSA. So let me go ahead and wrap up this episode. If you are listening on the podcast, make sure you hit subscribe. If you are watching on Facebook or YouTube, drop us some comments and Dennis and I will go back and follow up. So with that, I will sign out and we will see you next time.